Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Khalid. But today is the 6th of November 2024 and these are the stories that we will be highlighting during the course of the show. Our major headline or the major story today will be the US elections and Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States of America. With 277 electoral votes, he has gained the clear majority to become president. Not only that, his party now has the clear majority in the Senate as well. How is the Trump version 2, as a lot of analysts are calling him now, or the new revamped Trump after these elections going to handle the United States of America internally and externally? We will also be highlighting Donald Trump's policies in the past and what he might intend to do vis-a-vis the Middle East as well in this very show. Then we are going to talk about the newly elected lawmakers in India's Jammu and Kashmir territory who have passed a resolution on Wednesday, that is of course today, to demand New Delhi to restore the partial autonomy of the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region, which is a move that most probably Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to reject. Nevertheless, it's an important move by the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir government. Finally, we are going to talk about the James Webb telescope that has revealed rapid growth of a primordial black hole. We all know what black holes are, and there are a lot of theories as to what they can do, how they can absorb complete galaxies inside of them. And the new discoveries are extremely interesting, and we'll be highlighting that as part of our last story. Let's begin with today's show, and we will be of course talking about the US elections. Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, who would have thought a couple of days back that Donald Trump was going to be the new President of the United States of America, but it is the people of the US who have elected Donald Trump as the 47th President of their country. We've been joined by three guests to discuss various aspects of this new presidency and of course what Donald Trump intends to do vis-a-vis his foreign policy, vis-a-vis the economy, immigration and many other issues. We've been joined by two guests in the studios and one guest online in the studios. We've been joined by Dr. Amna Mahmood. She's a senior analyst, joins us right here in the studios, and she's been joined by another great friend of ours, Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal, who is an international affairs expert and a wonderful analyst as far as the West is concerned. Thank you very much, Dr. Jaspal, to have joined us. We've also been joined online by Matthew Bryza. He is a former ambassador and of course a senior White House and senior department official who will be joining us a bit later in the show. So let's begin without further ado about the US elections and Donald Trump as the 47th President of the USA. We'll begin with Amna. Dr. Amna, Donald Trump declares victory over Kamala Harris, becomes the 47th president. CNN confirms, Fox confirmed, in fact it was Fox that confirmed it first of all, then CNN confirmed, then Associated Press also confirmed him, and then of course the number of electoral votes that was required was 270, he's gotten 277 vote. How do you view this win?
I would not say that it was very much expected. I would not say that we were speculating that it's going to happen, but there were a lot of predictions about that Mr. Trump is going to win. But ultimately, it was a decision of the US voters that what they decide about their president. And I think that issues in United States and especially the economy and the apprehension of taxpayers that their money is going to the far distance wars and that is not being spent on the people of the United States. That was one of the most important apprehension among others. And as Mr. Trump tuned himself as well, that he was a bit mild in the last 1 month about his big claims about action against immigrants and so, and then he claimed that the action would be against the illegal immigrants only. And I think that a number of other issues were there, but the main issue was economy, and on that there was quite good promises from Mr. Trump. I think that paid him along with other issues. And the weakness of Kamala Harris, she was accidental candidate, and I think that her homework and campaign was not that much prepared as it used to be for the Democrat presidents in the past. And as they bring the program on the table that is more relevant with the rehabilitation of economy and national issues, that zeal was not seen in the campaign of Ms. Harris.
Because you were saying that she was an accidental candidate and she was not supposed to be the presidential
not
candidate.
Supposed. And then she was a bit young as well, because she just entered and in 2016 in the Senate, and then later she was elevated to the vice president. And during that period, Mr. Biden's period, she was not quite visible in any policy matter and policy debate as the case in most of the case of vice presidents in the United States.
All right. My next question to you, Dr. Jaspal, is twofold. First of all, Kamala Harris, she is a woman of color. She's a woman of Asian origin as well. Do you feel this bias worked against her as far as this presidential election is concerned? Secondly, Donald Trump in his victory speech talks about time to put the divisions of the past behind us. How crucial will be this work of Donald Trump now that he has become president to put the divisions, internal divisions in the US behind and work together towards a collective future of the US?
I think that the election was neck to neck, and the same situation we have seen in 2016 and again now 2020 and 2024. The trends were the same. Naturally, as my colleague mentioned, that she was accidentally became a presidential candidate because Biden was not able to carry this. So that was also advantage for the Trump. But on the other side, when we look about the voters and all these things, of course, within the United States, there is a need for healing. There was a strong division, especially on the party lines, and that division was, you can say, there since 4 years because of the last Trump election and then what happened in the January 2021. So definitely now his responsibility is that how he can bridge the gap between these, you can say, politicized forces. And definitely as a president and a leading Republicans are also having an advantage in the Congress. It's a responsibility of the President Trump that how he try to bridge the gaps and move ahead. For him, definitely for his policy, if there's a lesser controversy within the state society of the United States, it's more advantageous for him. Secondly, his second tenure is more mature, and he will be definitely try to now work out some kind of the things one can expect, which will be having a lasting impact, or not simply for a tactical, but for a strategic kind of a things.
Right.
So we can expect more in his policy stability and farsightedness. One can assume from a second tenure of the President of the United States, as now Trump is going to enjoy the second tenure.
Of course. Dr. Amna, in his victory speech, Donald Trump highlighted many issues, and I'll kind of summarize them in the beginning and then we'll take them up one by one. He says, we want a strong and powerful military. He says his victory is one that our country has never seen before. He says we are going to seal up those borders, coming back to immigration. He says this is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. This coincides with the second comment that he made. He says we are going to be paying down debt, we are going to be reducing taxes. Then he says, I am not going to start a war, I am going to stop wars. And then he says America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. I will group three of his statements and I'll ask you the question. He says this is a political victory that we have never seen before. Then he says this is a victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. This is a slogan that he has been talking about time and time again in the past as well. Then he says America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. How can Donald Trump use this powerful mandate to bring victory for the American people in the future as well?
Omar, the message is loud and clear that he will work for the glory of United States again. He time and again cited that job losses is done and then economy is going down And then he said that he will start here war with all those allies. They have stolen their economy, and now they are getting benefited by having low tariffs and trade preferences. So I think that he thinks that he is given this mandate by the people of United States to rehabilitate economy, one, regenerate the economy, and then reduce the taxes. That is the demand of the people due to high inflation rate in United States. And at the same time, when he says that he will reduce wars, it means the taxpayers' money would be spent on the taxpayers in fact, and those who are in need of the national social securities. So I think that he claims himself, and when he says that it is the victory of the people of United States, it means that you know, as there was assertion that Kamala represents the establishment and deep state of United States and he is against them. So he continued to assert his claim that he is not representing establishment, he is actually representing the people of United States. And you know, people of United States are standing with him. Otherwise, you see that last time, as Dr. Jaspal was just mentioning, that it was close contest, but this time it was supposed to be the razor sharp as that of the President Kennedy one time. And you see that the electoral vote, popular electoral vote is also neck to neck. Otherwise, last time he was having less electoral popular vote and more electoral votes from the college. But and Mrs. Clinton was she was having more popular vote and less electoral.
Of course.
But this time the equation is the same. That shows that Mr. Trump gained more popularity among the people of the country, and he is very much right in claiming that this is the time when he is coming back with the power of the people of United States, means the democratic representative, because you know there is a debate in United States now that people demand something else. People were demonstrating against the Israeli war and genocide of the Palestinian, but the government was standing, Mr. Biden's government was standing with Israel, and all the efforts he did were just cosmetic effect. So I think that people were rethinking about the mandate given to Mr. Biden. So I think that this is the message, that this time people of United States are powerful and he is following their demands and their aspirations.
Dr. Jaspal, he has also said that he is going to seal up the borders. We all remember during his election campaign also how he talked about sending back the hordes of immigrants, whether legal or illegal. That is a debate that we'll do another time. But of course, he talks about the immigrants that will be sent back. Then he talks about very stringent measures as far as immigration is concerned. Do you feel he will stand up to his word as far as immigration, sealing up the borders is concerned, and what kind of effects, positive or otherwise, is it going to have on the US?
I think that illegal migration always undermines the national security. We as a Pakistani are also facing this kind of crisis.
Of course.
Naturally, the Americans are facing the same crisis. The only thing is that he was saying during the campaign that he is going to strengthen the border management. Naturally, he will be not going to discourage the legal but illegal. And this was a slogan which he raised even his first time, or again the second time and third election campaign. So he remains stick with it. He is convinced that there must be a stoppage and getting rid of the illegal immigrants. This is first point, and definitely that. But on the other side, we have to not forget he is himself as a businessman, and businessmen always multiply the resources of the state, and he has a different mindset. And within that context, definitely whatever he was making his speeches during the election campaign, but we have to keep in mind that in the 2016 he simply said that the Iran and 5+1 nuclear deal, which we call it Joint Comprehensive Action Plan, was a bad deal, and later on in 2018 United States exited from that deal. So whatever he is making the certain statements, he will be remain committed with them. But here when we say that we are adding too much, you can say what you call it adjectives with it, saying that bringing back the soldiers or these things. My understanding is that American military industrial complex is very much beneficial of the Ukraine or the European war, and secondly, in the case of Middle Eastern side or in our neighborhood, he will be more aggressive rather than adopting a pacifist policy. So we must be not, you can say, reading simply what he's saying or what he said. We have to take into the global and regional dynamics, and definitely United States, though very mature political system, and a chief executive or president of the United States have a lot of say, but at the same time he has to take into account the Congress and public and then the national interest. Within that he has to move. So the way we are thinking here that he is all powerful, he has a lot of limitations of his own system, his own political culture, and within that the way he looked the world, or what is the transformation. At the moment, if you see, he said that, or you also very rightly pointed out, the strengthening the American armed forces. That's the need of the time, because world is now once again revert back to state on state conflicts, though the terrorism still on the stage. But the Americans are, or if you read the entire policy started from the Trump, and from the 2017 onward, there is a bipartisan consensus that the United States need a strong military muscle for sustaining preeminence of the United States in the global politics and securing and you can say advancing its national interests externally. So he will remain committed with these kind of the things. There will be no shift in that.
All right, Dr. Amna, let's also talk about the US Senate, where the Republicans now have a majority, with of course victories in West Virginia and Ohio. Now, do you feel this victory in the Senate will pave the way for legislation to be easily passed, unlike what used to be the case scenario in the past as well? And will this help this current government that Donald Trump will be forming to help pass important legislation that he intends to, implement in the US?
Yeah, we can say partially it is right, but in fact the legislation is done in both in House of Reps and Senate. So I think that it's not only the Senate that can assert, well, but the House of Representatives have its own role. So I think that one added advantage comes to Mr. Trump with this Senate majority, that his policies, his presidential appointments would be approved, and especially the Senate Committee of Foreign Affairs and then Committee of Defense, that would be helpful in approval of his policy, and having lobbying in the Senate for the approval as well. Rest depends that how Mr. Trump behaved with them, because we have seen evidences from American history that same party Congress was sometimes get opposed to its own president, and sometimes from other party side they are getting bipartisan support on some of the issues. That depends that how president is going to deal with the Senate, because senators are, some of them are very hostile. Being the Republican, they are having, as Jaspal mentioned, that they represent military industrial complex, and they would be in favor of tit for tat for American interests, and they would be against withdrawal. Some of them are pro-Israel, and they would support Israel, and some of them are against Russia, and they would support a Ukrainian war to be continued. So I think that would be the challenge to Mr. Trump, that he with his extra vocal style, how he deals with the senators.
And the statements that he has made before the elections,
yes.
On how many of those statements will be actually able to implement post his
I think
nomination?
we should not take all statements very seriously, because election campaign is something different, and
but he has remained true to his
different.
previous election campaign, so
But,
we need to
but
think
you
on
see
those
that
terms.
he
You are correct. Please, sorry.
I just wanted to say that in 2016 he claimed, but he implemented in 2018. So he is wise enough to take and create that scenario within the United States. He actually compelled public opinion on his side, and then he withdrew.
All right.
So it means that it depends that how circumstances go and how Mr. Trump deals with them.
All right, you were saying?
Yeah, I just want to add it that don't consider the American political system or American democratic culture or the norms and make not a comparison with the developing states' democratic political systems. Their leaders, whatever they have in the or political parties, whatever they mention in their manifesto and in the election campaigns, whatever they raise the issues and debate the issues, they have to deliver on them. Only question is that maybe 100% delivery is not possible, it's not humanly possible, but whatever they promise in the manifesto and whatever they debate or highlight during their election campaign, in the American kind of a state or in the United States, let's say particularly, the leader, if after victory, he tried to pursue those objectives. So we do not take his statements or those things lightly.
All right.
Yeah, so it's not a developing state where leaders say whatever they wish. Political manifestos in the parties, political parties manifestos, they are detailed manifestos, and when they become the executives, they never pay attention towards that. No, in the developed and mature systems, one cannot underestimate what they are committed.
That's a very important point, and I'll take that and more with my next guest who's joined us online, Matthew Bryza, former ambassador and senior White House and State Department official. Matthew, thank you to have joined us. Matthew, first of all, congratulations. You've got a new president-elect in the form of Mr. Donald Trump. I'd like to just state 3 statements that came once his nomination was confirmed. U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson says, "We have saved America. The American people have spoken." Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush says, "Congratulations, President Trump. I'm praying for you and our country." Senate GOP Chairman Senator John Barrasso says, "President Trump's victory is a mandate from the American people to get this country back on track." I'll take this last statement and ask you the question, is this a mandate of the US public to put US back on track? Matthew, I can't hear you. Could you maybe unmute your side so that we can hear you? All right, I'm going to ask the question, and in the meantime, I'll get back to you afterwards. Dr. Amna, there have been global reactions that have poured in. I'll go to the reactions from the Middle East a bit later in the show, but I'll begin with our Prime Minister, who says, "Congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump on his historic victory for a second term. I look forward to working closely with the incoming administration to further strengthen and broaden the Pakistan-US partnership." Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman Mao Ning says Beijing would continue to view and handle China-US relations in accordance with the principles of mutual respect, powerful coexistence, and a win-win cooperation. Then there are statements from the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Philippine President, Irish Prime Minister, French President, South Korean President, and many other leaders as well. How is the world reacting to Donald Trump's confirmation as the new president of the US?
Obviously, that is a formal diplomatic reaction. And as you mentioned, all European powers, they are allies of the United States. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, we are also having traditional relations with the United States, love-hate relationships that continue. But the importance is the reaction of China, because China never comes to confrontation on an word war. They always are very serious in their diplomatic statements, as we have seen that they react when Secretary of State traveled and to China, and there was no one to receive, and it was their reaction against the statements what they did. So I think Mr. Trump has been giving very strong statements against China that he is going to contain China and there would be
increase the tariffs coming to economy.
That would be trade war, exactly.
That is not just relegated to China, but to all countries, in fact.
But particularly he named China. And you know that the United States right now has not capacity to implement this trade war within 4 years. They can have a long-term planning because they have shifted all consumer products to Far East and China and now the Latin America and they are not having production of these things at their home, and he cannot impose tariffs. It would go other way around, having negative impact on their consumers. The costly things would be they have to purchase shoes, costly shoes, etc. But at the same time, Chinese response is very important because that is a very responsible message going to United States, that we are ready to work with a new administration. And that is, I think, that the real response from all over the world.
The Russian response has also been quite interesting, to say the least.
Yes.
Dr. Jaspal, coming to you, a lot of people and a lot of analysts say that the deciding factor in these elections was economy. About 31% of voters have said the economy was their top issue. A high inflation was also one of the top issues that ranked on the minds of the American public who voted this time. Was economy really the issue that stood on top of the other issues as far as the voting patterns this election is concerned?
I think all the election patterns, if you study, the leaders who come up with the brighter or futuristic economic policy, they are in an advantageous position. Americans are always concerned, and majority of the Americans are inward looking. Overwhelming majority for them, United States is bigger enough to not go anywhere else. This external or outward looking you will find in our country or some others. So economy is the key of them, and naturally President Trump gave up the idea, and he's now going to adopt a mercantilist approach, which we call it protectionist. General American desires this, that there will be more jobs, there will be no, there will be taxes on the imports, and so that the domestic, you can say, market must grow. But the challenge to the President Trump would be that when he imposed or increased the tariff, do his industry or the small industry will produce that kind of thing, because the industrialists, and it's a capitalist society, the investors or investors, they are used to have a cheap labor and more surplus sort of a thing. So the profit is also compromised within the United States, and definitely that will be a big challenge. But of course, my understanding is that at the moment, yes, in the United States, due to inflation and all these things, economy was a key factor to decide the election day, or a voters, you can say, decision to for whom they are going to vote or what they are going to do.
All right, Dr. Amna, you mentioned in the beginning of the show that Trump has gained in popularity, not only in electoral votes, but also as far as the popular vote is concerned. What do you attribute this increase in popularity between the 2016, 2020 and now the 2024 elections?
Yes, as we are discussing, it is the economy. On two fronts, economy is very important. One, that last time he promised bringing back the jobs lost by the Americans, and as I was just mentioning, that MNCs shifted their subsidiaries in Far East, China, and Latin America and Africa to some extent as well now, and he will bring back that. And secondly, people were very much concerned, as we have seen in the demonstrations against genocide in Palestine, that the taxpayer money is being spent on distance wars. So that taxpayers, since he says that he will reduce war, he will end up war. So I think that people thought that that money would be spent on the development of United States infrastructure. And since he's a businessman, he have number of plans for that purpose.
True.
And people can trust that. And another factor that he claimed himself, he portrayed himself as distance from establishment. So people think that he will spend more on economy and development, and then he said that he would stop illegal immigrants, so he would provide security to the United States as well, because in last 4 years we have seen that there were multiple incidents of security issues at the societal level, in schools, in colleges, in universities, in campuses, and in the street crime was very much increased. So I think that that's why people voted for him. And you see the communities, apparently they have to be against him, especially the Latinos and black Africans and
they were previously aligned to the Democrats, but now they have changed a lot of their allegiances.
I think that they are having trust in Mr. Trump, that he will bring back all economic measures which he promised last time, and he started some of them. And I think that that's why economy was at the core, and then the security, and then peaceful society was on the second.
Dr. Jaspal, when we talk of different factors that have contributed to Donald Trump's success in these elections, one of them, as per many analysts, is also the self-identified independents who have also voted for Donald Trump. Did they in fact have some kind of a role as well in your point of view? Those who do not adhere to either one or the other party.
I think that neutral voter or in the swing states there was also the same thing. That will be always focusing, but he did a lot of campaign how to catch the neutral voter. And that voter had already experienced previously the Democrats, and now they wanted to have a change. So they have no commitment, no ideology. So definitely neutral voter can support the new candidate or so-called new candidate, though Trump is not a new candidate. And secondly, Trump is a president which is or a person which is not coming, it is a outsider. Normally if you see in their presidential campaigns, the candidates and later on who are elected, they had a experience of Senate or a governorship or a state, and then they go. Trump had no such, he only directly landed in the White House, and again today he landed in the White House. So naturally this kind of a person has certain charisma, that's why he's getting the vote. Otherwise what he was saying that his performance rate as a governor or as a member of Senate or a Congress House representative was missing. And only the other thing is that of course this time you can say that Trump had a 4 years presidency. Naturally that was attractive for these neutral voters.
All right, Dr. Amna, let's talk about foreign policy. And I did, discuss in the past as well the different perspectives as far as Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is concerned. But now that we have a new president in the US, I'd like to, converge on the points that Donald Trump has talked about. He has said that Taiwan should pay for US protection. He is skeptical of sending more military aid to Ukraine, has vowed to quickly end the war. But he has also, as has Kamala Harris, pledged to stand by Israel and emphasize the need to end the war. Emphasize the need to end the war in Gaza. He has also called himself the best president in the history of Israel. How, in your point of view, is Donald Trump going to shape or reshape the US foreign policy?
Omar, as the student of American foreign policy, we see that the American political parties have exchanged and swiped their roles. Previously, Democrats were for the domestic agenda and Republican for the foreign policy agenda. And from Mr. Nixon onwards, you see the Reagan and Mr. Bush, etc. But now Mr. Trump actually he identify that what people of United States want. And you see that as Dr. Jaspal was mentioning, fluctuating vote or the vote that is not certain. Because politics is not on ideology, and these states, Virginia, North Carolina and Ohio, etc., these we can call it our KP, because they are dynamic. They just go for the service delivery or for the performance, and they change their affiliation, and they are not for one party or the other. Rather than as blue and red states do in United States. So I think that Mr. Trump has identified that where what people expect from him. And as we see that in the last 2016, I was just going through his speech for United States for Israel and its conflict with the region. He was asserting that this should be done, that should be done, but it's a fact that he delivered in the form of Abraham Accord. Though it was not in favor of Palestinians, it was not in favor of Muslim world. But if you go back at the time of the making of Israel, at that time there was a solution that there should be 2 states in Palestine, and our Arabs refused to accept that. Otherwise, there should be a even tiny Palestinian state, and if there would be war, Israel has to go back to pre-war position under the UN Charter. But it was certain kind of security for Palestinian population. But if you remember, that was Oslo Accord.
Yes.
And it was a great achievement. It was portrayed by the United States as a great achievement. And before that, Camp David Accord, it was all achieved. But it started with the security of Israel. Oslo Accord started with security of Israel. That United States cannot come out of that. So, if Mr. Trump promises that he will go for the peace in Arab lands, it would be not at the cost of Israel. It would be for the peace as they impose on their own terms.
All right.
And Muslims are content enough because they have seen genocide and assassination of murder and abusive killing of 50,000 Palestinians on record.
Which continues to happen,
yes,
basically,
and it
as we
continues
speak.
to. And not to talk about casualties, you know.
Dr. Jaspal, what are the expectations from Donald Trump as far as Middle East is concerned? We remember, I'll just go a little bit in time, last week on the 1st of, not last week, yes, on the 1st of November, he visited a Lebanese restaurant in Dearborn in Michigan. He vowed that if he was elected, he told the people, you're going to have peace in the Middle East, but not with these clowns that you have running in the US right now. Peace in the Middle East. Can Donald Trump achieve that?
But peace the way he going to chalk out. So that is whether it's acceptable for the Middle Eastern or not, that is a difference. Please keep in your mind that President Trump is going to follow the same policy. In the United States, foreign policy there's a bipartisan consensus how to maintain it. Yes, in this Far East, or what you call it Southeast Asia, or in the South China Sea, there he will try to lower the temperature, because if the temperature increases, then the Americans are compelled to send their troops in the Taiwan Strait, or in the Korean Peninsula, or in the Japan waters. But on the other side, in the Middle Eastern side, the Americans have already a lot of proxies there. And President Trump, my understanding is, will be becoming more aggressive, or the focused on his posture against Iran would be more visible, because he thinks that Iran's three capabilities, nuclear, missile, and proxies, which we call it axis of the resistance and they call it proxies, they are going to increase the Iran's influence in the region and undermine the Americans' interest in the region. So in order to protect it, that's the reason that he exited from the JCPOA agreement, and now he will be going to come back. And in the Middle East, increasing the temperature in the war doesn't going to cost American much, only the military industrial complex will be going to generate more. And that's why we have to see it, that how he's going to react, because he looks the Iranian or our neighborhood, or even in the South Asia or the far West Asia, as also a dumping ground for the Chinese, or a market for the Chinese, in a better word. So in this context, if he has been going to, or he will be going to pursue his containment, China containment policy, where do he will contain? China is already contained, whatever it has influence in this Southeast Asia or in Asia Pacific. There is already competitors are there in on the economic chessboard, like Japan, South Korea, Australia. But in this context, if you look about the West Asia or a MENA, you would find that there is an open land, and Chinese investment is becoming very attractive in that land. And that's why, and Chinese have presented themselves in the Middle Eastern context as a peacemaker, starting from the March 2023, which is not acceptable for the Americans. And that's why his policy on the Middle East will be more aggressive.
All right, let's see for that. We've been rejoined by Matthew Bryza. Matthew, thank you very much to have joined us. Matthew, as I was asking you why, and I couldn't, listen to what you were saying. I wanted to understand the mandate of the US public that it has given to bring back Donald Trump as the new president of the US. Is it going to put the country back on track as far as the different issues that it is confronted with is concerned?
Well, it's an amazing mandate, right? It's the first time a U.S. Republican candidate has won the popular vote in 20 years, in 2004. He surprised everybody, I think himself, with the extent of his victory. He won every single one of the 7 battleground states, and he outperformed himself. There are like 3,400 electoral districts in the United States, and he did better in 1,300 of them than in 2020, whereas Kamala Harris did worse than Biden did in 2020 in almost every one of those districts. So women, white women, black men, Latinos, black men, all these the constituencies that everyone expected to go to Kamala Harris went to Trump. And also the Republicans, just like they won both houses of Congress. So that is a mandate. Now, whether it will get America back on track or not, I think America is totally on track. If you look at its economy, the United States economy grew at 2.8%, is growing at 2.8% per year. That's the strongest in the G7. And it has a low inflation rate of only 2.4% and low unemployment of 4.1%. So the U.S. economy is strong. The problem is the American voters don't feel it because they are comparing the prices for which they paid, let's say, for eggs or meat 4 years ago compared with now. And there had been a lot of inflation after COVID. And also President Biden is to blame for part of that because he pumped so much money, trillions of dollars, into the U.S. economy. And he was warned by great economists like Larry Summers, Harvard University and former Secretary of the Treasury, Democrat, that the Biden administration was pushing too much money into the economy and inflation would come. Inflation did come. The American people remember it. And they punished, I think, Kamala Harris for that, even though inflation is now down from the previous highs of 9%. So it's a mandate to feel strong. And my last point is, and building on your discussion just now about foreign policy, I think Americans really are upset about what's happening in the world, especially Israel's war on Gaza and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And they feel unsafe, and I think they're looking for a strong person, a strong man. And so Trump did unexpectedly well, and yes, it is a mandate. So, okay, so he says the mandate is to reduce the U.S. national debt, but also reduce taxes. You can't do those two things at the same time. But he also says he has a mandate to end wars, and he wants to end the war in Ukraine and end the war, of course, in Israel-Gaza. He says he wants to slap 20% tariffs on imports of every good from a foreign country, which will be a disaster for the U.S. economy, I fear. And he wants to put 60% tariffs on all Chinese goods. I don't think he'll do that, but he feels he has a mandate to do so. And it's impossible to argue otherwise, that the American people have embraced him and embraced this unbelievable political comeback after being impeached twice, after 94 criminal counts, 1 criminal conviction, 2 assassination attempts. He's back. And the American people want what he's offering.
He says it is God that wanted him back, and that is why he stayed where he was, and he has now become the president of the U.S. Now, let's talk a little bit about North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona as well, who've 3 states that have been grappled by the effects of climate change as well. We all know Donald Trump's point of view as far as climate change is concerned. Will that change this time?
I don't know. I mean, he's consistently referred to it derisively as the climate change hoax. I don't think he's going to change that point of view. I don't think he believes that climate change is man-made. And I think he will do what he can to repeal the policies of President Biden that allow for so much investment through the Inflation Reduction Act, $357 billion in the energy transition. He can't do that. He can't repeal that legislation as the president. But if the Republicans control both houses of Congress, it's possible. To do that, though, he'll have to have a 60% majority of Republicans in the lower house, the U.S. House of Representatives. And right now, it doesn't look like the Republicans are going to get that. So he won't be able to repeal probably the legislation that allocated all that money for fighting climate change. But he'll use other policy levers, I think, to weaken the U.S. commitment to fighting climate change.
Matthew, this was an election of many firsts as well. You know, apart from Donald Trump also coming back with a bigger mandate, whether it be electoral votes or the popular votes as well. You had the New Jersey representative Andy Kim, who won the race to become the first Korean American. Then we had the first openly transgender person, a state representative from Delaware, Sarah McBride. We had Democrat Angela also Brooks, who won the race and set to become Maryland's first black senator. Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester, a Democrat from Delaware, first woman and first black person to be elected to the Senate from the state, and North Dakota, who elects its first woman to Congress, Julie Pedrochak. Will there be other firsts as far as decisions taken by Donald Trump in the coming months?
You've done amazing research. I wasn't aware of some of those. That's great. Well, he's already been president once, so it's not a first. It's a second in U.S. history that a previous president missed a term and then came back to be president. President Grover Cleveland did that in the late 19th century. So this is the second time for that to happen. But it's the other things I said about Trump. It's the first time any president has ever been accused of and convicted of a felony. So, you know, the first time, well, although the criminal stuff, this was the first election ever when there was, you know, an African American South Asian candidate. But in terms of new policies, I think Trump is going to try to continue what he viewed as his previous mandate, just with greater force now. And it's all the things you've been discussing and ending the wars. So I don't think firsts, but I think he feels he has a formula. I think he's going to try to continue the Abraham Accords success in the Middle East, which focus on improving relations or establishing relations between Israel and Arab states. Maybe the first will be that Saudi Arabia and Israel will establish diplomatic relations, but that depends very much on whether or not Trump can succeed in, quote unquote, ending the war of Israel on Gaza.
All right, last question to you, very small answer if it's possible. Do you feel that the American society and the American public is still conservative despite it being a Western civilized society, and maybe that was one of the reasons that a woman has to date never been elected on the top spot in the US elections?
Yeah, I think the U.S. is a conservative country. It's center right, but the left is growing stronger and more radical in the United States. But I do think, yeah, perhaps segments of American society, even women, were not yet ready for a female president, which I think is a tragedy. But I think that's still where we are, unfortunately. Yeah. But one more point is that the Republican Party has now become very much what the Democratic Party used to be, which is a party of working class people and of ethnic minorities like Latinos or racial minorities like blacks. American politics have flipped on their head.
All right. Thank you very much, Matthew Bryza, to have joined us, former ambassador and, of course, senior White House and State Department official. I hope this will be the first of, also not the first, but in continuation of many other important discussions that we'll be having in the future. And also like to thank my two guests. We're a bit short of time, Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal Saab, foreign affairs expert, and Dr. Amna Mahmood, our dear friend and foreign affairs expert as well. To have the both of you, I would really like to thank the both of you to have come all the way to the studios despite your busy schedules, and you've discussed this important topic that I think we'll be discussing in the coming weeks and months as well, because of the policies, of course, that the new government is going to bring forth as far as its national and international, foreign policy is concerned. Thank you very much to the both of you. Let's come to very, very quickly on our last two news stories. The first concerns the newly elected lawmakers in India's Jammu and Kashmir, who have recently passed a resolution that is on Wednesday to demand New Delhi to restore the partial autonomy of the Himalayan region. Now, of course, this is a move that Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government is likely to reject. Nevertheless, it makes it a very important move as far as the whole issue of illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, that after the elections, the government in the illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region is now moving forward with this resolution. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the James Webb Telescope has revealed rapid growth of primordial black holes. We all know what black holes are all about. It's a discovery that has been made a long time ago, but they are suspected to take in complete galaxies or solar systems and completely absorb them. We don't know what happens inside. There are many speculations as far as that is concerned, but NASA is saying that there is a rapid growth of a supermassive black hole called LID 568 that existed when the cosmos was about 11% of its current age, about 1.5 billion years after the Big Bang event, 13.8 billion years ago, that initiated the universe. It was observed gaining a mass at a pace faster than previously thought possible. So, with these new discoveries in the 21st century, we are seeing so many new development and so many new things that we can now understand much better than we could say a few decades back. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's news. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories and segments that pertain to you, us, and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.